Hey there, welcome to the Business of Story. I'm your host, Park Howell, and I'm so gosh darn glad you're here with us today. As we continue to bring you even more storytelling goodies to accentuate the impact of our Brand Bewitchery series, I thought it'd be fun to examine the power of a super sticky name for your brand, your product, or your service. But how do you come up with these gems, these morsels, these wonderful little interesting icons that really trigger the fascination around your brand and how it beckons your customers into your story? What's in a name? Shakespeare asks in his play Romeo and Juliet. That which we call a rose by any other name would smell just as sweet, he proclaims, suggesting that the name of things is irrelevant. Is it now? You've all heard of Wendy's hamburger joint, right? You may immediately picture its square burger patties that are synonymous with Wendy's, synonymous being the story we tell ourselves about the brand triggered by its name. What do you think of when I say McDonald's, Burger King, or Smash Burger? You probably are thinking Big Mac, Whopper, and, well, Smash Burger. Names, of course, are how we categorize entities, brands, products, and services, and their meaning in our world. So last week, Michelle and I did something we haven't done in well over a decade. We stopped at Wendy's in Camp Verde, Arizona, for a road trip bite on our way to Jacumba Hot Springs. And you won't believe what we ordered. The friggin' Baconator, which to me should really be renamed as the Angioplaster for its artery-clogging half-pound of beef, American cheese, not one, not two, but 6 strips of crispy Applewood smoked bacon smothered in Heinz ketchup and mayo. I think it's no coincidence that the Baconator is inspired by the Terminator. Do you? So why did we both wolf down a Baconator on a 6-hour road trip? Well, my gluttonous excuse is that the Baconator was top of mind, having just interviewed our guest, the person who named the darn thing. And I'm here to tell you, that which we call a Baconator by any other name is definitely not just as sweet. If you're in the need for a name, you're in luck, because today the international queen of naming herself, Alexandra Watkins, will share with you how to come up with a super sticky and even greasy name.
Scratch are the 7 deadly deal breakers, and every single one of these you do not want to have in your name. They will all become problematic. A lot of people rush into their name. They're not thinking of these things, and it's only later that they realize, this was a mistake using this name. So I will caution you, all of these will be a problem.
As you no doubt heard right there, Alexandra Watkins is a leading and outspoken authority on brand names with buzz. For nearly 20 years, she and her naming firm, Eat My Words, have created love-at-first-sight brand names for countless companies, including Amazon, Coca-Cola, Disney, Twitter, and Google. Her breakthrough creativity book called Hello, My Name is Awesome, How to Create Brand Names That Stick, was named a top 10 marketing book by Inc. magazine. Her personal name hall of fame, including that of the Wendy's Baconator, includes Nido, robotic vacuum, Burger King's Mac and Cheetos, Spanish language school Gringo Lingo, and frozen yogurt franchise Spoon Me. As you'll hear, Alexandra helps her clients by giving them brand names that begin to tell a story. For instance, she had a client that was a vertical farming company, and what did she call it? She called it Plenty. The name Plenty is like the cover of a book, she says, that just begs to be opened. By the way, Plenty was just named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential companies. What's in a name, right? Over my nearly 40-year career in brand storytelling, I've had the opportunity to name lots of stuff, but without the process rigor Alexandra takes her clients through. So the fun part for me in this show today is that I got to roll out a number of those crazy names we developed, and I bounced them off of Alexandra. It was fun, kind of scary, and I'm curious what you think of her observations about our naming conventions. You'll also learn about her SMILE framework. That's S-M-I-L-E, an acronym which stands for the 5 qualities of super sticky names. Plus, we review her scratch test, an acronym that covers the confusing naming elements you need to be aware of and avoid at all costs, so people aren't scratching their heads about what in the heck you're trying to convey in a bungled name. It happens all the time, believe me. And finally, you'll come away understanding why having an evocative brand name will immediately engage people and make them want to dive deeper into your story. Pretty cool stuff, huh? So please welcome to the Business of Story, a name, by the way, that gets critiqued by our guest at the end of today's show, Alexandra Watkins. Alexandra, welcome to the show. Good morning and happy Halloween.
Thank you, Park. I debated whether or not to wear my Barbie costume, and I decided against it. But
I'm actually really glad you decided against it because Michelle and I went to a Halloween party at our club up here in Munns Park on Saturday, and 2/3 of the room were dressed in Barbie and Ken outfits.
Really?
Everybody was into it.
Wow, we had a big party here. We had like 65, 70 people, and there was only one other Barbie.
No kidding?
Yeah.
Wow. That surprises me. In San Diego, of all places, too.
I know.
I think it'd be overrun with Barbies and Kens.
You would think.
Well, it's great having you here. I've had so much fun reading your book, Hello, My Name is Awesome. I love it. The bravado, how to create brand names that stick. And today, you're kind enough to come on the show because in 8 years, I've never talked about branding around, naming and name development and how important that naming is to support your story, to launch your story, to everything about it. And in your book, you have so many wonderful, you've got the Hall of Fame names, and then you've got the completely thuds, those that like, what in the hell were they thinking? So today, we're going to talk about your SMILE and scratch test when it comes to creating super sticky names. Real quick, what is the SMILE and the scratch test?
The SMILE and Scratch test is a 12-point name evaluation test, and it's based on my philosophy that a name should make you smile instead of scratch your head. And SMILE is an acronym for the 5 qualities that make a name awesome. Scratch, the flip side, are the 7 deadly deal breakers, and it's if a name makes you scratch your head, scratch it off the list.
Fair enough. Now, how do you find yourself as being the worldwide naming maven? I mean, you've really carved out a remarkable niche for yourself, and a lot of iconic brands rely on you to do work for them. How did you find yourself here?
Well, that's a great question. There's actually some really interesting stories behind it, but in a nutshell, I was an advertising copywriter for a very long time, and when I discovered that naming was a profession, which I never knew, I switched gears and declared myself a professional namer, and I used a lot of creativity and ingenuity to kind of work my way into some big branding firms, naming firms as a freelancer, and eventually got given enough work to open my own firm, Eat My Words.
Okay, so you were a copywriter for some big-time West Coast ad agencies like Ogilvy and Mather and so forth. What did you study? Where did you grow up? What did you study to get into the advertising world, which is hard to get into as a writer a lot of the times?
Okay, well, so I have just quick story. When I was in 8th grade, I discovered advertising, just, watching Bewitched on TV.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew I wanted to be in advertising, so I told my parents I didn't want to go to college. I just wanted to start working. And of course, that didn't go over very well. But, my mom always said you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So I was able to talk my way into working at an ad agency at a very young age. And eventually, I've just been able to talk my way into pretty much every opportunity I've ever had has been a result of me either just doing something really creative to get attention.
Doing something really creative to stand out, get attention. Did you grow up with a lot of siblings like I did? There were 7 of us in the Howell household. And yes, we had to do stuff creatively to get attention.
No, no, I only have one sibling, my sister, and she took a different path. She went to the Harvard Business School, but we both ended up in the same place. We both became successful. So, but I was always a creative child and just loved using my creative brain, my right brain, to get noticed. And I think our names are the same way. I like doing things that are unexpected, and I believe that unexpected names are the ones that get the most attention.
Well, mine was certainly unexpected. If you realize that from oldest to youngest, there's Dan, there's Melody, Tom, Steve, Park, Chris, and Mike. So I was the odd man out with the name, and it has actually served me well. I guess my folks didn't even realize they were branding me at the time of my birth in 1961.
Park is a really easy name to remember because Central Park, right? Parking place, parking spot, yeah.
Oh, you see it everywhere. My wife will say, "Is it ever weird for you to look around and see your name everywhere?" I go, "No, that's a utility thing. I'm just a guy thing here." But so you started your branding world with Gap. Something happened there with your Gap client at the time, or you were working internally. Can you take us to that moment when you got the assignment or whatever that was that happened to you in naming stuff at Gap that woke you up and said, "This is what I'm supposed to be doing"?
Yes, that's it. Yes, I knew this woman that was a creative director at Gap, and I was not a professional namer at the time, but I knew I had a talent for it because I had, in advertising every once in a while, I would get thrown a bone and get to name something, and I was good at it, and I loved it. So I found out about this opportunity for a 6-week gig at the Gap as a freelancer to come in and help name their new line of beauty products. And I was living in San Francisco at the time, and it was such a dream job. I got to work at their headquarters down on the Embarcadero. I had a window office with this amazing view, and some of my favorite names came out of that assignment. My favorite one was a travel makeup kit, and I named it Dash, because you're dashing out the door and you can apply a dash of color. And it was Dash, and the tagline was, "A little color goes a long way."
Nice.
So that was really, and so after I did that, I was like, this is all I want to do. So
and there's enough work out there for naming stuff, huh? Because I been in the advertising, branding, marketing world for almost 40 years now, and so many times a client said, "Oh, we've got our name," and they'd roll it out, and you're like, "What the hell is that? What does that mean?" I'm confused. But you find a lot of work out there in naming.
Yeah, and San Francisco is really a hotbed of naming firms. The whole, Landor, Interbrand. What's a big one? Lexicon Branding. Those are all in the Bay Area. Mm-hmm. So I think there's been a lot of, kind of spin-offs of different people starting their own firms. And I came out of nowhere. No one knew who I was because I came from advertising. And all of the namers knew each other. And I realized I needed to know them. So I used to live in a really cool loft. And, floor-to-ceiling color, it had been described by the San Francisco Chronicle as Pee-wee's Playhouse on acid. So I invited them all over for a party. I just emailed them, and that's how I got to know them. And it's a very welcoming and mentoring community. And there was, everybody seemed to believe there was enough work for all of us. And that's how I got to know the namers and become one.
How long have you had your company?
Almost 20 years.
Yeah. And do you think it takes a certain, I don't know, skill, talent, DNA to become a really good namer?
I think that to have a natural ability is very helpful, but I also know I can teach anybody to be a namer because I've written this book and I've seen the results of people using my book, and I have an online course. Plus, I've had people start working for me, interns that know nothing about naming, that through osmosis have become really talented namers.
Yeah, it's fun because when you find that perfect name, it really is the genesis of the brand story, isn't it? Like you said with Dash, there are different levels to meaning for that name. You're dashing out the door, you're putting on a dash of color. When you are naming something, are you always kind of looking for those different levels of meaning in one word?
Yeah, yes. I mean, they happen, but it's not always top of mind. But when we're evaluating names and like which names are the strongest, if they have multiple meanings, it really helps. One thing that I named early on in my career was a robotic vacuum named Nito. And it was, right, it neatens your house, and Nito, it's a vacuum, it's a robotic
cool.
vacuum.
Nito, uh-huh.
Right? And then another time naming one of many frozen yogurt stores that have named one of the names on the list. It's not the name the client chose, but they were based in Salt Lake City, Utah, and one of the things I did was looked up snowboarding lingo, and one of the words I came across that was lingo was chatter, and it's a snowboarding term that means when your board is riding on rough terrain.
Mm-hmm. Chatters across the snow, the ice.
Oh, okay, you're a snowboarder?
Well, a skier. And my skis chatter a lot, too, in bad conditions.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it also was evocative of, the frozen yogurt store targeted at teens. So teens chattering with each other, socializing. And then this whole idea of being a cold place and teeth chattering. So that had like multiple meanings to it. So yeah, anytime a name has multiple meanings that work, it's really, really helpful.
Yeah, we did some branding work for a new meditation concept that people would come into instead of just meditating at home. They built a community around meditation. It started here in Phoenix. It's moved on to Dallas. But we came up with the word current. And at first, when you think about what's that have to do with meditation, well, what's the goal of meditation is to make you current, be here, be now. You're also tapping into the flow, the mindfulness and that sort of thing. And then thirdly, even the idea of energy coming out of it. After, you're tapping into this current of energy through mindfulness, and hopefully when you're done, you are leaving with very positive energy. And it turned out to be a really fun name to work with in telling their brand story.
That's a great name.
Oh, thank you. Well, let's I appreciate that coming from the international, naming queen, monarch right here. But I really love your book. Highly recommend it. Let's talk about that SMILE test. So What is that, and what does that acronym stand for?
So SMILE, as I mentioned, are the 5 qualities that make a name awesome. And the S stands for suggestive. And you want your name to suggest something positive about your brand and give a hint to what it is that your brand is or does. So, for instance, Amazon is a metaphorical name that suggests something very large. So that's a suggestive name.
Yeah, one of the names I like, a suggestive name, and what they've done with it with their brand storytelling is booking.com. I mean, it's descriptive, it's suggestive, it knows exactly what, it communicates exactly what they do. You know exactly what they do, but I love in their storytelling around it, they always end a commercial with booking.yeah, because, your story is not about what you make. Their story is about making, they are about booking rooms, but what you make happen. That got the right room at the right price, booking.yeah. I just love what they did with their name and how they spun it a little bit.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. What other suggestive names do you like?
Well, I love the name Kryptonite for a bike lock company because we all know Kryptonite repels Superman. And so we make the connection that Kryptonite would repel bike thieves as well.
So they're using some borrowed interest in that storytelling. That kryptonite already holds a place in our brain for the story of what it means, and now they're just simply metaphorically applying it to the bike.
Right. And I think borrowed interest, like in advertising, we all learn don't do that, but in naming it works really well to use a metaphor. So yeah, that's the S, and then the M in SMILE stands for memorable. And what makes something memorable is if it already exists in our knowledge base. So let's look at kryptonite again. So we all know kryptonite from Superman. So that's a name that is going to be easier for us to recall later from our brain's dusty filing cabinet because we already have an association with it, and it gives our brains something to latch onto as opposed to a foreign word or something completely made up that, like, there's a bike lock, a similar shape, a U-lock, name, it's spelled ABUS. I don't know if it's pronounced Abbas or a bus, but we don't really have anything to latch onto with a name like Abbas, although I did figure out if it was a bus, a way to remember it would be if your bike gets stolen, you might need to take a bus.
Yeah, but that's a good example of a name that doesn't work very well because you don't even know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, exactly. Then the I in SMILE stands for imagery.
Okay, 1 second before we get to imagery,
sorry.
because I went through my whole list of different names that we've come up with over the time, and I thought, since I've got a naming expert here, would love to bounce them off of you and see if, number one, if they're any good, or number two, how might they be better, or what would you look at? So in memorable, and you talked about in your book, finding words that we already associate with or already have a story to. So we were working with a company here in Arizona called Global Water, and they were very big about water reclamation and reuse. They then created pre-AI all this amazing intel that they could get for water utilities and sold this software as a service platform, and we needed to rename it. Couldn't be Global Water. They wanted something more descriptive, something more memorable about what that service, that SaaS platform was, and we came up with the word Fathom. And the reason
I
why,
like that.
It plays off of two things. Fathom, understanding, I fathom this. And of course, fathom is a measurement of water, the depth of water, the knowledge. And so it was this whole idea of we can bring depth of knowledge to the operation of your water utility so that you can make the right choices, save water, save money, so on and so forth. And it is today called Fathom.
That is an excellent name. I have tried to name so many things Fathom and have never been able to do it. But yeah, it's a fantastic name.
Oh, thank you. And there's where you've got a little bit depth of meaning, a couple different stories. Fathom understanding and fathom depth of water. Bring those two together for depth of understanding of your water. So playing off of the metaphor thing. So anyways, good. So far I'm 2 for 2. I've got a bunch of them, and you're going to say, what the hell, I'm sure, on some of them. All right, imagery. The I for imagery.
Right. Imagery is all about memory as well. So people can remember pictures and images much more easily than they can remember words and letters. So especially, random words and letters. So when people hear your name or see your name, if they can picture something in their head, they're going to be able to recall it much more easily. So example, we named an energy drink Bloom, and it was an all-natural energy drink that it was kind of a replacement for Diet Coke, for instance, that women could drink in the afternoon to, wake up again for that sleepy 4 o'clock hour that we all start dozing off in. So Bloom, when you hear the name Bloom, you can picture a flower in your head, right? So when you're at the grocery store and you're facing that wall of energy drinks and like, what was that name Alexandra said? And like you kind of close your eyes, right? Because you're searching your memory bank. And then you can picture that flower. That's going to help you remember it later.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the flower incident here because I've got one for you under imagery. We were helping brand and name a new all-natural allergy product because you have no idea the over-the-counter allergy medicines and the impact, the negative impact they can have on your system. Well, this was an all-natural 5-part allergy supplement, and it worked really, really well, and we called it Heirloom. AIRLOOM, with this idea of bringing in, kind of looming together these supplements so that you could breathe easier. And the image on it was just a simple little leaf, and the veins of the leaf make out 2 lungs. So you got the leaf coming down, you got 2 lungs on either side, and it's right over the word Heirloom, all natural allergy relief. That was something that when I was reading through and I saw imagery, I thought, well, I'm going to put that one in there and see what Alexandra thinks of that.
Yeah, Heirloom is very clever. I would say the one downside to it is you would have to spell it.
Yep, exactly right. And when I went on to Amazon to look at natural allergy supplements or supplements in general, there was like, 2 million different hits all across the board. And so with Heirloom, we really were very pronounced in how you spelled it, and you could see it. But that was the one thing I was always worried about. They don't know exactly how to spell it, but once they do, they're like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm a part of the story.
Yeah, Heirloom is spelled phonetically, right?
Yeah, exactly
as
right.
opposed to the real word heirloom, which has a silent H.
Yeah, exactly right. AIRLOOM, heirloom,
Yep.
all one word. So,
Yeah.
all right. Next up, legs.
Legs. So legs is the hardest thing to do, but when you can do it, you're golden. So legs is where your name lends itself to a theme, and that helps you extend your brand through wordplay. So I'm going to use my own company name as an example. Eat My Words. So our whole theme is food. We started out specializing in naming things that make people fat and drunk. The Baconator is my claim to fame. My name.
Oh, did you name the Baconator?
Yes, I did. I named the Baconator.
That's awesome. I love the Baconator.
Yeah. The Baconator has its own Wikipedia page. So that's when you know a name is successful. So at Eat My Words, so our icon is the pink refrigerator, for instance. And I have the pink, for anybody watching this, you can see the pink fridge over there in our office, 1950s.
There it is.
Retro pink refrigerator where I keep our cool books. So we have a menu of services. Our blog is called The Kitchen Sink. I just introduced a package called Fun Size, perfect for Halloween, fun size candy, we all know. So yeah, we have a lot of fun with our name, and we've been able to extend the brand. So when you do have a name that lends itself to a theme, you can really go to town on it. And not only will you come up with ideas, but your customers and clients will make suggestions to you as well.
Can you give us another example, something that people would really understand, really see every day?
Oh, something that they would see every day?
Like who's doing a good job with this?
Let me give you one that everybody loves. So there was a publicist that we worked with, a very fiery woman named Lynette Hoy. Her name said, a lot of people use their personal name as their brand name, but your brand name doesn't say anything about you. So we branded her Fire Talker PR with the tagline, hot on the press. So you can see her theme of fire. So now we're using the word hot on the press. She calls herself the fire chief. She works in the firehouse. She has packages like Controlled Burn and Fire Starter. Her webinar is called Ignite Your Visibility. And her theme song, and if you have a theme, you can have a theme song, is Fire by the Ohio Players, which is really fun. So before she does a webinar, a speaking engagement, that song gets cranked up. She gets the audience, in the mood, excited. So that's what you can do when you have a theme.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that theme has to really, really represent the person or the brand, doesn't it? If you're not a fire starter, you can't be a fire starter.
Exactly. And that just goes with, you want to, and when you're coming up with your name, you want to figure out, what is the personality that you want to come through and make sure that you stick to that. So, do you want to be playful? Do you want to be, don't say trustworthy, because everyone says trustworthy. And look, would you
Innovative.
buy a car? Would you buy a car from Trusty Sid? Probably not. Don't put trust in your name. So that's legs. And then do you have any legs names you want to run by me?
Gosh, I don't. I might have to get back to you with the legs name thing.
Okay, and then the E in smile stands for emotional. And it's really important that your name makes an emotional connection and resonates with your prospective clients. Otherwise, it's going to go right over their head.
So you've got these 5 things: suggestive, memorable, imagery, legs, and emotional. Ideally, does the right name have to be all of these things?
Yes.
Give us an example of one that's done pretty good with a couple of them, but is missing out on a couple of others and therefore is not very good. I've stumped her, folks.
Well, I will say, here, I'll give you an example of one that's done a really good job. So it's a frozen yogurt franchise named Spoon Me. So Spoon Me, right away, it makes people smile, okay? It suggests something about the brand, right? A spoon, okay, yogurt, frozen yogurt. It's memorable, right? Because of the imagery of spooning, right? It has, memorable imagery, right? Imagery, spooning. The legs, so before they would open a new location, instead of coming soon, the sign would say spooning soon. On the door, before you even walked in, it said no shirt, no shoes, no spoon. Because they were in Utah, it also said no, under their store hours, it said no spooning on Sunday. So they really had fun with it. They monetized it with merchandise. Their best-selling T-shirt was "Shut Up and Spoon Me," and in their restrooms, they had graffiti on the wall that had movie kind of famous quotes from movies, but they changed the words. So instead of from Jerry Maguire, "You had me at a hello," it said, "You had me at Spoon Me." Yo Adrian, let's spoon. So, but this is where the customers got involved. So the customers would come up with ideas and then tell them to the people that work there, and then they'd make them onto the walls. So that's where your clients can really become part of your brand and the brand experience and get, that's exciting for them. It really is. And of course, Spoon Me makes an emotional connection.
And did you help them with that name? And then the extension of it, you showed them how to use it in all the different areas? That's where your copywriting really came in.
Yes, but you know what? No, they came up with, we did a lot of the T-shirts and merchandise for them, but they came up with the no spooning on Sunday and no shirt, no shoes, no spoon and spooning. They did that all on their own.
Well, I was looking at a name we came up that the client did not use, but it was all around this idea of having legs. Now, get this. It is for a parking lot near Sky Harbor Airport that you could, come and put your car at, and then they take you in a nice limo over to the airport and drop you off. There's lots of these parking lots out there. And the guy that was developing it had all solar panels, shade structures on it. And it was kind of over, you could really see it as you're taking off out of the airport. It's over to the east end of it. And he came to me, he goes, "There's a lot of competition for parking in Park. And I really want to do something different with this parking lot." And I go, "Different how?" He goes, "I need to have it be distinctive." I go, "Cool. So how often do you get to brand and name a parking lot?" Well, I don't know if you listen to Ben Folds at all. I'm a big Ben Folds 5 listener, and he's got this song, when I was thinking about this, called Effington. And it's written about a little town outside of Illinois that he was driving through, and he just happened to call it, the song Effington. And I thought, what if we name the parking lot Parkington? And actually make it so it feels like you have arrived and departed from somewhere, not just a parking lot. Where I said, bring in more shrubs, even have some fake potted plants around where people park. So you're going to actually beautify a parking lot. You could then have people have their own reserved spaces so that they feel like it's their own. And if you're really good, when they get back, when they're arriving back from their trip, you even have a welcome home mat outside their driver's side door. You know what I'm saying? And I showed them all of these different ways that you could actually humanize a very undistinctive parking lot. They thought I was crazy. They said, I don't, you know what that's going to cost to do that, blah, blah, blah. And so they never did it. But I always thought, Alexandra, that would have been so much fun to truly brand a parking lot as a place, your own place, and try to humanize it and call it Parkington. I'm driving to Parkington today and flying off to Chicago or whatever.
Well, you just said place, and Park Place would be good too.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I love the welcome mat idea. That's so clever.
When you get back, but boy, you'd have to have people really on top of it to know when you're returning, so that
It's
would
so
actually
easy
work.
now. I went to an event last night, and when I parked my car, they asked for my phone number. I got a little message: when you're ready to leave, click on the link. We'll go get your car. And I could even pay that way. It was easy.
That's beautiful. That's the way to go. So we've gone through Smile. Those are the 5 real core elements of a solid brand or a solid name. By the way, I always have fun on just the naming side. I was thinking, this happened a couple of years ago. I was having a really hard time sleeping. I was coming out of my little bout with COVID, which wasn't so bad, but afterwards I just couldn't sleep for about a month and a half. And I thought, how come somebody doesn't come up truly with an all-natural sleep aid, and I'd call it Comadose. Comatose, comadose, give me a little dose, put me in a coma for about eight hours, then I'll be good to go. All right, I digress. Comadose. What is the scratch test?
Scratch are the 7 deadly deal breakers, and every single one of these you do not want to have in your name. They will all become problematic. A lot of people rush into their name. They're not thinking of these things, and it's only later that they realize, this was a mistake using this name. So I will caution you, all of these will be a problem. So the S in Scratch stands for spelling challenge. We talked about that with heirloom, right? Now heirloom, once you explain it and people then, okay, yeah, they get it. But a lot of times names look like typos, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so if your name looks like a typo, scratch it off the list. You will forever have to spell it for people. So let's say your name is Tackle, but it's Tackle with 2 Ks. Then you're gonna have to. But what's weird is when you have a name, and then you have to say it's like blank with a with a L, and they're like, where does the L go? It's like a lot of times, or create with an 8. Like, wait, where does the 8 go? Like, if your name has numbers in it, that's also spelling challenge, because you're going to have to spell it. Anytime you have to spell it out, your name is spelling challenge. Versus a name, if people hear the name Eat My Words, even the Baconator, you know how to spell the Baconator when you hear it.
The Baconator. You in your book talk about poopery, which is a marvelous, marvelous name for something to help you with your restroom smells. There's a new one out, and I don't know if you've seen this one playing off of it, that it's also for pet and cat odors. And we live up here in the mountains in northern Arizona, so our dog got nailed by a skunk earlier this year, and it was so hard getting that smell off. Well, this new product does that, and I love the name. And it's Poof, but it is spelled P-O-O-P-H. So it's poop with an H, Poof. And of course, I saw it on an infomercial, and then I saw it they retargeted me, and I saw it online somewhere, and I got it, and it works wonderfully. And I just love that name. I thought it was so much fun. But it does have a bit of a spelling challenge. Once you see it, you get the joke.
Yeah. But the thing is, okay, you told me how to spell it, and I'm going to buy it because our dog got skunked twice. We live in an area in San Diego called Point Loma that sometimes is called Skunk Loma because we have a lot of skunks. San Diego just has a lot of canyons and skunks, but yeah, she still has a little bit of the skunk smell going on. It's hard.
It works really well. Poof, P-O-O-P-H.
Okay. Poof.
There you go.
A little spelling challenge there.
All right, what's the next one up in Scratch?
The first C in Scratch stands for copycat. And look, nobody likes a copycat. We learned that as little kids, right? Remember, copycat. So why be somebody else when you can be yourself? Seriously, do not copy another brand, because what people will do when they see your name is roll their eyes and think like, oh, they just copied so-and-so. And also, when you're a copycat, you open yourself up to trademark infringement. And the last thing you want is to get a cease and desist letter. And look, we work with a lot of clients that come to us because they infringed on somebody's copyright and they are in a hurry to get a new name. And it's always really unfortunate because it's very costly to have to do that.
Oh, yeah. Think of all the branding that now has to go in to reframe your story around this new name. You got to find something that's going to work for you. You got to find a URL that's going to work for you, presumably, but maybe not always. Yeah, I could see how that'd be a real pain.
Yeah, so be careful with the copycat situation. And then
do you have examples of copycats?
Yeah, a copycat. Well, the one that I cite all the time is if you know the frozen yogurt store Pinkberry. So Pinkberry, there's so many copycats of Pinkberry. Yoberry, Blissberry, Yumberry, Coolberry, the list goes on. And I don't know how many are still in business. And I found all of those just by Googling or doing a Google image search for putting words in front of berry with frozen yogurt after it. I would just put random words in front of it, and I just kept coming up with more and more. And another copycat of Pinkberry is red mango. And why is that a copycat? Because it's a color and a fruit, right? It's not even a great name, but it's a copycat name. So where a name like Spoon Me, there's no color, there's no fruit, it's very creative, and it has legs. Not a lot of legs with Pinkberry.
The biggest copycat thing I've seen in my entire career is that damn Got Milk campaign and how everybody knocked that off,
Oh my gosh.
Got junk, got this, got that, so much so to the point, and maybe it worked for them, but God, it was annoying.
Oh my gosh,
annoying.
Yes. You were so right. That is the most copied campaign ever. Got junk. Yeah, no, people have turned it into the names of their businesses.
Yeah. I mean,
and what's so crazy, it's like
creative.
grammatically incorrect too. It feels that way at least.
Well, it worked great for that campaign.
It did. No, that campaign
marvelous campaign.
Yeah, no, Goodby is such a great ad agency and so creative and breakthrough.
Yeah. All right, so we've got spelling challenge, copycat. What's the R stand for?
The R stands for restrictive, and that is where you have a name that you outgrow. And you mentioned the bookings.com, bookings.yeah.
Yeah.
A restrictive name in that space is an app called Hotel Tonight. And when Hotel Tonight came out, first launched, you could book a hotel room for the night. Great if you had, missed your flight or, were at a bar at 2 a.m. Who knows what people are using it for. But then they decided that you should be able to book a room more than for the night. You can book a room up to 365 days in advance now on Hotels Tonight. So they outgrew their name. I think a better name for them would have been Get a Room, because it could work for any amount of time. It's a fun name. It's a phrase that people are familiar with, right? It's in our existing knowledge base, and it works across the board. Whether you missed your flight, whether you want some hanky-panky, Get a Room works.
Where do your names come from? Have you done this so much that it's kind of intuitive? It's like they sometimes write themselves. They just pop into your mind like Get a Room?
Yeah, sometimes they just pop into my head. And yeah, like the other day I was working with a guy who's a international volleyball, gold medalist. And he was naming some supplements. And I came up just off on the fly like that. Net Gain would be a fun name, right? Because there's net, volleyball net, and it could apply to not only volleyball, but tennis, badminton, pickleball, all the net sports. So that sometimes they come to me, but for the most part, we all use the internet to come up with name ideas. So for instance, when I talked about chatter, that came when I was naming the frozen yogurt store. I was looking up snowboarding terms, right? So snowboarding lingo. So sometimes it's looking at lingo. Another time I was naming a men's athleisure brand. So Athleisure is for people that don't really work. They like the comfort of workout clothes and athletic clothes, but they don't necessarily go to the gym. So this men's athleisure brand, our client was a big MMA fighter fan. And so I started looking there for ideas, and I'm like fighting, so I'm like, so I Googled movie fight scenes and movie car chase scenes, and I got volumes of information. So a lot of times what I do is I just skim, copy, and I'm looking for interesting words to pop out at me. And I was skimming something, I think about Chuck Norris or something, and I saw the phrase stunt double. And stunt double to me seemed like such a great name because it's an aspirational name. Like you kind of want to be that guy, but you're really just the guy at home on your sofa eating Cheetos, right? Flaming Cheetos. So stunt double became the name. So sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's just skimming, looking for ideas. Other times it's a thesaurus, right? It can be that simple. Scrabble dictionaries if I'm trying to come up with alliterative names. Of course, now ChatGPT can be really helpful. ChatGPT is not good at most like really clever names. If you try to have it come up with fun names, it's super corny, like dad joke kind of names. But I think like the other day I was working with some Navy SEALs naming some new autonomous surface vessels. And not for the Navy SEALs, but my clients are all former Navy SEALs, and they wanted to explore names of pro-defense senators who were no longer living. Do you know how long it would take me to do that on Google? But I just put it into ChatGPT, and it gave me 25 of them, like right off the bat. So that's what ChatGPT is good for.
I'm guessing you went with Goldwater for them.
Luckily, the client didn't go in that direction. They went in a more creative direction.
Have you used this platform, relatedwords.org?
Oh my gosh, relatedwords.org is one of my 5 secret, so you just revealed it. I have 5 secret resources that if somebody who reads my book reviews it, I will, and they write to me and say, hey, can you send me your creative, or no, if they say, can you send me the creative resources in your book? I will, and I say, if you want 5 more, write a review on Amazon, send it to me, and I'll send you 5 more. And Related Words is one of my favorite, one of those 5.
Yeah, it's really fun. I actually had a client show it to me a couple of years ago, and then I jumped into it, and I go, oh, yeah, this is great. It doesn't always lead you down the golden path, but it does give you a lot of good ideas.
Oh yeah, no, I've definitely come up with names using Related Words. It's such a great brain stimulator.
Alexandra, I want to keep moving on. I'm going to hold these other 4 words, annoying, tame, curse of knowledge, and hard to pronounce, because I want people to get your book and understand what that is. But the power of a name was really, really underscored to me a couple of years ago. My wife's aunt and uncle own a winery out in New Mexico, of all places, out near Farmington, so in the northwest corner of New Mexico. It's called the Wines of the San Juans, and they're very, very creative people. They built all the structures around there. They taught themselves literally how to make wine by watching YouTube videos. And if you're wondering if this wine could possibly be very good, they've been in business now 25 years, and they've won 4 or 5 gold medals out of New York for their wines. And they're really fun, very creative people. And one of the varieties they were selling with, I can never say this word, Gewürztraminer, that really, really sugary, sweet German brand of wine, I guess. I don't particularly like it. It's just way too sweet. And they made a whole bunch of it, and they couldn't sell it when they had it out there. I mean, it was going nowhere. So you know what they did? They renamed it. And you know what they named it? Girls Are Meaner.
Oh, interesting.
And they just did a play off of Gewürztraminer to Girls Are Meaner. And since they launched that name 10 years ago, it has been their #1 seller.
That's a great story.
Yeah, that tells you the power of a name, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. That's phenomenal. I love that.
So how do people name? Can you take us quickly through maybe a quick little naming exercise, or where do you start? Where do you start?
Where do you start is you want to fill out a creative brief. If you get my book, you will see it in there. So the brief is your roadmap. So you will talk about, the goals of your name, tone and personality. And the brief exists not only as a roadmap, but also as an acid test for you to keep going back to make sure when you're reviewing your name finalists, do they match the goals and strategy of the brief? So you want to also, in your brief, write an acid test sentence of how people will use your name when they say it. You want to, remind yourself of these are the style of names that I like. These are names that I don't like, the style I don't want to do. You will write down any desired brand experiences that you want your customers to feel. Any consumer insights that you know about your customers that might help you in the process. So as much information as you can put into the brief, the better your results you're going to have. Then before you start...
And Alexandra, real quick, before you're done, when you're thinking and looking at customer insights, are you asking yourself, what are my customers, my prospects currently thinking about my industry, my product, my service? I mean, are you having to get into their heads as to what stories are they already telling themselves about your offering?
Yeah, well, more like if you know something about them that could help. So, for instance, what tea drinkers? What is it about tea drinkers? When do they drink their tea? What is something that might not be obvious that you might want to remind yourself of, right? Or it could be, pet lover, people with certain, if you're naming a brand of pet food and you're targeting people that are like, don't have children, they're pet parents to just the pet, they have incredible love for their animal. They treat them like a part of the family. Then knowing that and kind of reminding yourself of that could drive the direction that your name goes in. Like that could be a theme that you explore. And that's also something that would be in your brief, or like, what are some themes you could explore? Family, that could be a theme. So that's what that does.
So that's a good example then. Okay, I go back to what we were doing with current meditation. And when we looked at the overall market, of course, we wanted to dial into a singular market that we could build off of and grow from. And we thought about yoga communities and the mindfulness world. And so one of the real big reasons why it delivered, we came up with the word heirloom to play to that with the imagery of that leaf with the lungs on it. And we pushed this idea of mindfulness. Be mindful about the allergy medicines or supplements you're putting into play. Be mindful about what this is doing to you internally and externally. And it was all around this because we also knew that those, we would call them quote unquote sneezers, that those running yoga gyms and the yoga folks, trainers out there are sneezers. When they come across something that really works, they are going to share that with their customer for the best word of mouth marketing there is, free word of mouth marketing or best advertising there is. So yeah, we took that into, really thought about that audience and what do they care about? What kind of words, do they think and use and that sort of thing, so that we had all of our vernacular around that brand focused on that audience.
Yeah, that's excellent. And things like that can really help in a name. So once you have your brief completed, what I suggest people do is comb through their brief and pick a dozen starter words. And these are not words that you necessarily want in your name, but they're words that are concepts that could fuel ideas. So for instance, when we were naming Spoon Me, the frozen yogurt store, a word that I pulled out of the brief was cold. And from cold, we were able to focus on that word. We could make some names out of it, like cold-hearted, but also ideate around cold. And, I went to a thesaurus and I saw the word Siberia, and Siberia could make a really fun name for a frozen yogurt store. Same with frigid, especially in Utah. So that's how a name can. Or also, I went on Google Images as a place that I look for name ideas, and I saw. I typed in cold, and I got people blowing their nose. So I typed in cold weather and cold, winter sport. So that's like, it's a jumping off point, right? So that's what I suggest people do, is comb through the brief, get those starter names, and then go from there.
I was going back through your smile list, and a name that I helped a lady here in Arizona with her company. I was actually working with a bunch of startups. They're all in the room all at one time, and it was just like this free association, brainstorming everything from their brand story. Some of them already had their names dialed in. They're doing other things. And this one woman came up and introduced me to the concept of Kegel bells. I did not know Kegel bells existed, that women used them for strengthening their crotch and their vagina and that sort of thing. And I was like, what? And so she explained all the stuff to me, and she was a huge, still is to this day, proponent for women's health around Kegel bells, and she was trying to name her company. And I jokingly said, you should call it the Vagina Gym. And she loved it. And she named her company Vagina Gym. And I'm like, oh my God, she did. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's really good.
I was so embarrassed as this naive guy up there going, oh my God, are we really talking about this? But it was fun. I mean, talking about a name that is descriptive and has some legs to it, and, is sort of shocking in its own way.
No, it's really good. Oh my gosh, that name, it just, yes. Like I like to tell people, think about having your name on your name badge at a networking event. And does it invite a conversation of, like, oh, tell me more about that. Not like, oh, what is that? But like, yeah, that's one of those names. Yeah, it just begs the question, tell me more.
Well, that's why on the cover of your book, you have a big name tag. Hello, my name is Awesome. How to create brand names that stick. Alexandra, thanks so much for coming here. Where can people learn more about you? And I will also tell them that in the show notes, there are a couple really fantastic free links to free giveaways that you can tell us a little bit more about.
Sure. So eatmywords.com is our website. If you want to test your name and run it through the Smile and Scratch test, just click on the homepage. You'll see Test a Name. You run your name through that test, and then you'll submit it and get your results. You can also on eatmywords.com click on free mini masterclass to take my, a hour-long course that will teach you a lot. And there's all kinds of resources on our website for you. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just when you connect, just don't blindly send me an invitation. Tell me you heard me on Park's show so I know who you are. And yeah, those are all great resources for me.
That's awesome. I got to ask you, what do you think of my name, The Business of Story?
Yeah, it's good. I remembered it. Yeah.
Well, I have my good friend Jason Bear, Jay Bear of Convince and Convert, that actually came out. He was helping me launch my podcast, 8 years ago. And he said, Park, what are you going to call it? My old ad agency was Park & Co. because I once had a client say, you have such a distinctive name, you should name your agency after it. Well, I found out that was a mistake after the fact. But he says, what are you going to call it? The Park & Co. Podcast? I go, no, I need something new because I'm transitioning out of being an ad agency and a brander into just consulting, teaching, coaching, and speaking on the power of story in all aspects of our lives. And he just blurted out, well, what about the business of story? And I go, I love it. Sign me up. So, we did not go through your creative brief, Alexandra, for that one, but
that's okay. Jay endorsed my book.
Yeah, he's a great
good guy.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here. This has been an absolute blast. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, and happy Halloween.
Well, how do your names stack up against the Smile and Scratch test? If you know of anyone wrestling with finding the right name, like the Baconator, please share this episode with them. If I can be of service to you and yours in the name of developing your brand storytelling skills, then shoot me a note to park@businessofstory.com. Tens of thousands of executives in hundreds of iconic brands the world over the past 30 years, have grown their businesses, their sales, and their careers using our storytelling frameworks because they work. I'm ready to show you how to wield the and, but, therefore, the 5 primal elements of a short story for big impact, and the story cycle system when you're ready. Just shoot me a note over to park@businessofstory.com. Thank you, Darius Holbert, great name, by the way, for producing our music. Marissa Hill, whose name is as smart and sweet as she is, for handling our community development, and for Caden Howell, spectacular name, for producing our show. I hope you join me next week when you will experience the hero's journey monomyth in action as I read the final segment of Brand Bewitchery, Appendix 2, that is my origin story describing how the business of story and the story cycle system came to be in the first place. It includes characters like an actual creepy clown riding a bike through sweltering cotton fields, a head-hunting guardian angel who saved my life, a semi-mad Hong Kong businessman who threatened to fire me because of the space between my front teeth, a Hollywood attorney who saved my career, a brilliant Persian vice president who strengthened my storytelling skills, and my first appearance on stage teaching storytelling at the Gaylord Hotel in Washington, D.C., well over a decade ago. Until then, remember that the most important story you will ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make that one epic. Thanks so much for listening.